Hello, everyone. My name is Malika Bilal. I am an international news journalist and TV and podcast host based here in Los Angeles. And I am so excited to be here with all of these beautiful faces and beautiful people today. I have only seen 2 episodes, like many in our audience, our virtual audience that are watching. But that's great because that means no spoilers. Those 2 episodes, though, were enough to get me hooked. I am completely in love, and I say that with no shame. I really, really love what I saw, and I'm now waiting with bated breath for the rest of the season. So without further ado, let me introduce our panel. Adil El Arbi and Bilall Fallah are the directing duo. They're in the back. Next, we have Mohan Kapur, who plays Yusuf Khan. Zenobia Shroff plays Muneeba Khan. Sharmeen Obaid-Chinoy, director of episodes 104 and 105. Meera Menon, director, episodes 102 and 103. Kevin Feige, executive producer. In this row, we have Sana Amanat, executive producer. Next to her is Rish Shah, who plays Kamran, Iman Vellani, Miss Marvel herself. Next to Iman is Matt Lintz, who plays Bruno. Then Yasmeen Fletcher, who plays Nakia. Saagar Shaikh is there at the end, who plays Aamir Khan. And then joining us virtually via Zoom, because it is 2022, and that's what we do, Bisha K. Ali. Welcome, welcome. Thank you guys all for being here. So thanks to, of course, you guys for coming. You didn't really have a choice, but I appreciate it anyway. And thanks to all of you at home for tuning in. Let's just dive right in. Before I do, just a little housekeeping to the members of the press watching virtually. You can use the Q&A function in the Zoom to pop your questions in, and I promise we will get to as many as humanly possible or superhumanly possible as we can before the hour is up. So first, let's dive in here in the room. There are a lot of firsts with what we have here today. We have the MCU's first Muslim, first South Asian superhero, and I can tell you, as a member of one of those communities myself, I watched it in awe, thinking, I am so glad this got greenlit. But also, how did this get greenlit? Sana?
You should be asking him.
We'll get to Kevin, but this is your baby. Did you have some of those same feelings, and how did this go from the pages to the screen?
Yeah, I mean, this is all very, very trippy. I mean, when Willow and I were crafting this comic about 8 years ago, we joked about how we're like, this is not going to get past issue 9.
Hey, so it's not just me.
Yeah, no one's going to care. And lo and behold, Kevin Feige cared, which is amazing. And of course, the rest of the world. The comic did really well. We had incredible runs. And I think what I love about it the most is that it had people from different backgrounds, people had never really read comics before, showing up in comic shops for the first time because of what this meant and what it stood for. And I think that is really sort of the merits of the success of this series. And a few years later, when Kevin let us know that he wanted to make this into a show, I was thrilled. I also feel like it's kind of perfect for a series, a live action series. But yeah, I don't understand exactly how and why. I think because she's pretty great, and Kevin can tell us why specifically he chose Kamala.
Why not? I say. I mean, honestly, Marvel? It's such a privilege because not only are there reinterpretations every few years of existing wonderful characters, but every once in a while, and it does seem like every decade or so, there's a new character that comes around that catches the audience's imagination, and this character clearly did that. And as I said to some people on the red carpet last night, almost from the first few issues, people started asking us in environments like this when we were promoting other things, when is Kamala Khan coming? When is Miss Marvel coming? So it always seemed inevitable in a great way that we would be able to do it. When Disney Plus came around, it really gave us the opportunity to do what we really wanted to do, which was tell her full story in 6 episodes and then have her then transition into a feature. So it really, and as Sana said, I'm so proud of bringing new characters to the screen and not just telling reinterpretations of characters people have seen for decades and decades. And I think that's important. I want people who've never even considered watching a Marvel Studios production before to be excited and watch this show, and then go watch all the other ones.
The gateway drug. Iman, so one of the people that Sana kind of mentioned is the people who maybe or maybe not have entered a comic book store. I know that you have one around your hometown where you grew up, but you are also a really big MCU fan. So here's a story that if you have looked into Iman's background, you might know it. But for those of you who don't, you got the casting call from a WhatsApp forward from your aunt, which if we're being honest, is a very Muslim, South Asian thing.
This is the brownest way this
to
could
happen. It really is.
Yeah.
So talk to us about the genesis from that WhatsApp forward of the casting call to you sitting here today.
February 2020. I get the WhatsApp forward. I thought it was a scam. I don't know what casting calls look like, but they are not white pages that say Miss Marvel, Disney Plus, and headshot and resume here. So it turned out to be real. Yeah, I did it and sent in a very academic resume, the one photo I had of myself, and they sent back the sides for the self-tape, and I was like, I knew exactly which comic books they pulled them from, and I was like, okay, this is real. I can't do it. I was like making excuses for myself out of fear of failure, and I like 3 a.m. the night it was due, I sent in my self-tape, just like, I was like, my 10-year-old self is going to hate me if I don't even try. And 2 days later, I get a call. They're like, do you have a lawyer? We want to fly you to LA. And I was like, I have a math test, but okay. And next week, I'm in LA with my dad. It was like the greatest trip of my life. And I was fangirling over Serafin and Luz Despacito. And just, I wanted to take full advantage of being in that room because I didn't know if it was going to happen again. And yeah, then pandemic hit, and they sent me one email, and they were like, look, you're very much in the running. We just got to figure some stuff out on our side. And I was like, I got to figure out university on my side. Yeah, and then June 2020, sent in last self-tape, and then we did a screen test over Zoom, and I got cast on the last day of high school.
Congratulations.
Hell yeah.
I don't think which is better.
Woo!
Graduating or getting cast?
Oh, graduating was not fun during COVID.
Okay,
I was a 2020 graduate.
Right,
so.
exactly. All right, so this was more fun.
Hell yeah.
That is a great story. Bisha, I want to go to you on Zoom. What was the process like of developing this character for a series? Because comic book fans are super loyal, so they will know that there are slight differences between what they see on their pages and what they might have seen in the trailer. Powers might look a little different. Arms and hands might look a little different, not giving too much away there. How is Miss Marvel different than she is in the comics?
She's live action in the first instance. I think it was an incredible process, and the thing that felt like such a gift was the fact that Sana was involved in this project from go. And having Sana around really felt like, okay, there are like borderlines of how we can do this and stay true to the character that's in the comic books and that's on the pages, and still add something new, add a freshness, add a vitality and a contemporary edge to what we're going to see on screen. And I would say that everything, I can't speak for anybody else, but I will attempt to in this one moment, every single person involved in this project loves those comics deeply, personally, from their full hearts. And I think we're all committed to that love. So it wasn't a case of I didn't rock up and say, hey, Kevin, I know, let's throw out the powers. That was not my first pitch by any means. And that was really a group decision, talking through how she's going to exist in the MCU, how she's going to fit into this web of storytelling that Marvel Studios has done in live action over the last decade, and putting all those pieces together while staying true to like this beautiful, incredible character that Sana and her team crafted over in the publishing side.
Bisha, that just means if people are mad at us, they can blame me then.
Correct, and I have been crafting that answer for some time.
Well played, well played.
Mohan, I want to go to you for this next one because we hear a lot about representation these days, so much so that it can kind of sound like a cliche. Like, what does it really mean anymore? But what does a series like this mean for members of the South Asian community, members of the Muslim community, members of communities that haven't traditionally seen themselves on screen?
Sana, Kevin, correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think this series is shouting from the rooftop saying that, watch me. I'm talking about representation. It's a wonderful story of a community that's so ethnically diverse and culturally rich. And for me, coming from that region, I think it's a fabulous up, because we're suddenly saying, This is the Marvel universe telling a story about our milieu. And it's so beautifully and so subliminally, translated over scenes. A small scene like you go to the mosque, you put your shoes in over there, you come back and the shoes are gone. That's a real thing. That's a real thing. The process of entering a mosque, the festivals, the wedding ceremonies, they're just so beautiful. And I'm sure that, because I know this for a fact from whatever little social media that I'm into, that side of the world they just can't wait to see this happen. They say, this is us. This is us. Now, the fact that if Marvel could, run this juggernaut, it's a big thing for the rest of the world and the other production houses to say, if they could do it, they knew what they're talking about, let us do it. And it's going to be a roller coaster from here on, hopefully for actors, for writers, directors, for the entire caboodle to sit up and say, let's do this. Let's show their story and not shout from the rooftops. This is not a political statement. This is a story of one family, one girl. But it's so beautiful. It's a story of a family in a land that's not their own, but they've called it their home. And that's beautiful.
God damn.
That was
good. Padre.
Straight to the heart. Oh, man. I love you, man.
That is why he is the father.
Yeah.
Okay, but you're going to follow that song.
Oh,
All right.
God. Are you kidding?
You spoke up. It's because, he said
How many
something.
people are watching?
Just two. He said something that made me think, and it's the best part for me about this series. It's those little cultural and religious references that are kind of sprinkled throughout. So you've got praying before starting something. You have your name, Miss Marvel's name is Kamala's name in Arabic calligraphy on a necklace. You have Quranic calligraphy throughout the house. And then you have things that aren't necessarily translated. I'm thinking Urdu words like rishta and batpaki. And context clues are really all you need. And if you want, you can Google, because, your computer is right there. How intentional was that? And for you, was that strange to walk into a world where you kind of know what you're doing and you're wondering, is that okay?
It was weird only because it's not what I feel like any of us are used to. We're used to having to explain a lot of things or fight to change a word or say something that's a little deeper of a cut, just to get that reference out there. But with this show, it was like everybody was on the same page. Everybody got it. And you're right. It's like, it's not our job to teach you what beta or beti means. That's a quick Goog. You just type it up, and the answer's all there. Yeah, it was really like pleasant. It made it really easy for everybody to do their jobs because, everybody working on this show is like Muslim or South Asian, and we all got the references.
It is a super diverse cast. So everyone's
Matt,
Matt.
Matt.
I'm gonna
No, Matt is honorary.
Honorary member.
Honorary.
But he's going to be a Muslim.
honorary.
Yeah.
I'm going to put you.
Repeat
on the
after
spot
me.
now. Matt, I'm going to put you on the spot just because I'm wondering, since everyone pointed at you, your character actually does something really cool in that he programs a robot to speak and understand Urdu.
Yeah.
So for you, walking into a shoot like this, looking at the script, were there things that were unfamiliar? Did it frustrate you? Were you excited about it? How did that feel for you?
Oh, definitely not frustrated. I mean, overall, it was excitement, and I was so curious about, the culture and the religion and just everything about it. And going on to the show, I was just excited, and, I don't want to spoil anything, but there's certain scenes where I was able to see, the culture and how diverse and rich it is, and even the clothes, and just there's so many things I've learned, and I feel like, coming off of season 1, I've learned so much from all these beautiful people, and just to call them, my friends and castmates is something that I will be forever grateful for. Yeah.
Adil and Bilal, I want to go to you. Not related, though apparently sometimes people think you are, but you are the directing duo. How does this fit into your wheelhouse? Because it's a little different from some of the other things you've done before.
well, let's say it's a little less violent than than other work, but
You can
but
Google their work. I
it's
won't
for the
name drop
family.
it,
It's for the
but
family, you know. It's the kids and family. Sometimes it's possible, but no, it was you know, after we were editing Bad Boys for Life, we were saying what's the next step, and next step had to be Marvel.
Marvel is the biggest in the biz.
So and we were kind of joking around and saying, if we're gonna do a Marvel show, it's gonna have to be a Muslim character, Muslim
Damn
superhero,
sure.
not knowing that it existed actually. So that's how we discovered Miss Marvel and knew that they were going to do something about it, and we fell in love with Kamala Khan, with her world, her character. I mean, we're Moroccan Belgians, so when we were 15, 16, we were also looking for our identity, our place in the world. Are we Moroccan Muslims? Are we Belgians? And we felt related to that identity crisis of Kamala Khan. And then we met the great Kevin Feige, and we said, yo, we cannot not be part of that. So so that's how we convinced him, and alhamdulillah, he gave us the great opportunity and chance to be part of this amazing project.
Well,
Thank
worth
you.
pointing out, as he said, that they were coming off the biggest movie of the year. Bad Boys 3 was a big, giant hit, well-reviewed, well-received, and the biggest movie of 2020?
Yeah, but you have an
Yeah.
asterisk,
Oh, is it?
COVID,
2020.
yeah,
Pandemic.
but still.
That's
Don't talk
okay.
about that.
Don't worry about the asterisks. And their name came up, and I was like, why? Are they going to come do a show for us? They could do whatever they want. They're the biggest movie of the year. And they did. And you can see the passion, and it runs throughout this entire show.
what was it
Thank you.
actually like?
Love you, Kevin.
Go for it. What was it actually like for you? You knew you wanted to do it, but then you got on set, you're doing it. What was that like?
Yeah, it was an honor, true honor to be part of the MCU. It's a dream come true. It's like the little kid comes outside. Sometimes we were like, really kids on the set that the producers were like, come here and direct.
Yeah, we're giggling all the time, so
Yeah.
so they helped us. Santa helped us to focus.
It was a lot of energy. It was a lot of dragging them by their shirts, being like, "Okay, guys, the camera's this way." Them and Iman at AvengerCon actually was like a bunch of just kids running around.
We did a lot of
Where are our
selfies.
actors?
We're playing with the toys and all that, and yeah, thank God for the focus of the producers. But yeah, it's you know, being part of the MCU and doing it in such a way with the first Muslim superhero. It's just beyond the dream. So that was really, I'm forever grateful. Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah.
Sharmeen, I want to go to you. How did you approach balancing the superhero aspect of this with the fact that it's also just a story about a family and a teenage girl? How do you keep those two things relatable to the audiences?
I think it was about letting the world into the secret that the South Asian culture is pretty freaking cool. Our food, our music, the way the parents' relationship with the kids are. I wanted to make it cool so that anybody watching it would be like, that was my argument with my mom when I wanted to go out, and she's like, there are going to be boys there, stay home. And you know, sort of make it such that anyone watching beyond you know, the Muslim world or South Asian immigrant families watching could see a reflection of themselves on screen. And the superhero bit was just that I always believe that everyone has a superhero in them. They just have to activate it. Telling that this story is going to change so much for so many people, because I know I have two young girls that when they see Kamala Khan, they too will know that they can also be a superhero.
Zenobia, I want to go to you next, though, of course, Saagar and Mohan, you can chime in on this as well. But talk to us about the family dynamic, because you are the powerful matriarch of this family. There would be no Kamala without her mother in this series. Did it feel authentic? Did it feel relatable? What did it feel like? What was the direction you were being given?
Absolutely. I mean, have you met South Asian mothers? They're all like that. I think Muneeba Khan is you know, real prototype of the South Asian mother, highly protective, very loving, kind, but very fierce, and will throw down when she has to. And I just think in terms of the family dynamic, Adil, Bilal, we all got there about 3 weeks before the shooting began, but it was very organic. We had a few rehearsals. I don't think anything was forced or pushed, and we just sort of, as Saagar and Mohan and I have been saying, we have a baseline understanding of each other because we were all and Iman, we're all born in South Asian households, whether these two were born in the Americas, we were raised in India, but we have a baseline understanding of each other, which is very deep. And based on that, I think we just quietly built it. And then the writing, and it just, the yin and yang of it, Muneeba became the yang. She's definitely the yang. And Yusuf became the more loving, straightforward parent. And it just sort of evolved very organically. But what you're seeing is not uncommon for many, many South Asian households. I think we just created it very, very naturally. There was never a word exchange, you do this or I do that. And Mohan and I, as Muneeba and Yusuf, I think created that very naturally. Wouldn't you say? Say yes.
G Muneeba.
But Saagar and Muneeba, I'm also wondering, can you chime in on that? Did it feel natural to you? Did it start to feel like a family?
Yeah, I mean, what Zenobia was saying, like, just all of us being South Asian, I feel like we come with this code that we all just get. And so, that's just a foundation that we already had going into this. And so there was a lot less explaining that needed to be done, or a lot less learning about each other's, culture that we just didn't need to do because it was already there. So, we just kind of built on that, and it was a lot easier. It was a lot easier that way, because, yeah. I'm done talking. I should have stopped 5 seconds ago.
Your parents have said enough. Your father said G. Yeah. Yes. Your mother spoke. Meera, I want to go to you. How does a superhero like Miss Marvel help to break stereotypes?
Helped me break stereotypes? Kind of what Bisha was saying, I think everyone here has that true love for the comics. And I think I similarly, was gifted the comics by a friend that was like, this girl on the cover kind of looks like you, and I had never seen that before. And I think the power of that reflection to, be able to see yourself in someone who has to, then go on a journey to summon their own bravery and sense of self to save the world, not knowing whether or not brown girls from New Jersey are capable of doing that. Like, that is everything. It's the whole, if you can see it, you can be it thing. So it's incredibly powerful. It's possibly the most powerful thing we can do.
Yeah. Yasmeen, how did it feel to be in the MCU? I mean, you are in it now. How does it feel?
I still don't know. I've said this so many times. I think from the moment I got the call to right now, I've just been on this joyous autopilot and just living in every single moment. And like a lot of this cast, I've been a huge fan of the MCU for the majority of my life. So going from watching these incredible characters on screen to getting the insane opportunity to play one has been literally the biggest honor of my life.
Rish, same question for you. What did that feel like? And when you got that call, what did it feel like?
You could probably answer.
No,
this
tell
better
them
than
what
me.
you were surrounded by.
Oh my god, all my Funko Pops that I've been collecting and are arranged in my mom's kitchen in a specific, all the battle sequences over the years. Yeah, I was worried I was going to freak Son out.
He hid some of them. He's like, yeah, but there's more behind my computer. I just felt embarrassed.
Yeah, so obviously I was freaking out. I mean, the first toy I ever received from my dad was an Incredible Hulk action figure, so it really was something, yeah, like all of us have grown up with. So to be able to play Kamran, I immediately, when I was at university, I used to go to the comic shop called Forbidden Planet in London, and I'd seen the comics, and when I found out this was happening, I begged to get into the room. And so, yeah, I was basically crying with tears when I found it.
Okay, so we are about to go over to our virtual audience, but I have one more question. Iman, I will end with you. How does it feel now to be days away from knowing that the world is going to see this thing that you've been working on for so long, this art that now will be released out into the world? What does that feel like?
Pretty good. I don't know. I'm still processing. I don't really feel anything. It's been a big part of my life before I even got cast, and so I'm just excited that people can finally, see what I saw when I picked up those comics for the first time and fall in love with Kamala and her world. It's so colorful and just the fandom of it all. It's truly a love letter to all the MCU fans. So I'm excited for the reaction.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for your questions. We're going to turn now to our virtual audience for your questions. Remember, you can use the Q&A function. We've already got a bunch in, so I'm going to go through them what I can. This first one is from Ash Crossan, and forgive me if I butcher your name, from Screen Rant, who has a question for you, Kevin. Avengers Con seems like a great idea, especially after last weekend's Star Wars celebration. Any chance Avengers Con could ever become a reality?
We were definitely talking about that on the set. We shot that right, in the middle of COVID protocol, so there hadn't been a convention for a very long time, and it was very cathartic for all of us to see that. And we were shooting Spider-Man: No Way Home on the stage right next door, believe it or not. Actually, the scene with the 3 Spideys, and a lot of that crew kept sneaking over to see and attend AvengerCon, walking around. So I think that might be fun to do sometime. Yes.
I completely agree.
Yeah.
I think some of our props, I think, are going to be circulating, I think, on the Disney campuses or something. Or
there might be a few places that you can go and visit the Miss Marvel version of AvengerCon. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
There is a draft email from every single writer in the writer's room being like, Bisha, how do we pitch Kevin Feige to make AvengerCon real? I still have it in my drafts. I have not sent it, but I'm here for it.
You wanted to add something, Sana?
No, we're good. I was gonna make fun of them, but it's past.
Let's move on then. Let's move on.
The guys were saying, sorry, Bilal was asked a question yesterday about what his favorite moment on the Miss Marvel set was, and he's like, it was when we were on the Avengers con set, and Kevin brought us in and took us through a door onto the Spider-Man set, and we saw all of the 3 Spideys, and I was like, that is.
But the story was not finished. Tom Holland came back to come and see AvengerCon.
Yeah.
So that
literally does not answer the question.
But it was a pretty epic
Different
moment
movie.
to be there. So.
Anyway, sorry. People have questions.
No, they like the inside stuff too, so thank you for that. This next one is for you, Sana, and for Bisha. Janal Butts from Hotterfly India has a question. The music for this season is such a great selection. What was the thought that went into choosing the tracks? And I have to agree. I would hear something and be like, they didn't. They did. Wow. Is that MIA? Like, I really also love this question. Janelle, thanks for asking it. So who wants to take it first?
I'll start, and then you guys can banter in the room. I think there's always this vision of like the energy and the tone that both Adil and Bilal and the entire crew brought to this, of how we bring this character to life, and the music is such an integral part of it. And honestly, like, I agree, it's just banger after banger on this soundtrack. And me and Sana had some emails back and forth, but really Sana had such a clear vision of what those songs should be, and I was like, what about this one? And then she would just blow me away by like topping every single one. So it's really a Sana question.
Oh, thanks, Bisha. I mean, I grew up listening to a lot of Desi music, and for me, this was kind of like the moment. I was like, oh my God, all of the songs I've ever loved. And also, there's so many great artists. I think South Asian music and South Asian diasporic music is probably some of the best music in the world. And it was just a great platform. And, the studio and Kevin was so excited and gracious about hearing different kinds of music and celebrating that in the show. So I had been curating a playlist since Kevin called me to say, hey, do you want to join the show? And I was like, do I? And I just kind of kept adding songs and just kind of pulling off of that. And our music team with Dave Jordan and Shannon Murphy really kind of, dove in, and we're excited about it. It was really challenging to get clearances on a lot of these songs. So I'm just really happy. And I feel like the music is a blend, like Kamala is a blend.
I was just about to say, it's like bringing together worlds. The entire show is kind of about bringing together all the generations. And we have old Pakistani, old Bollywood, and then modern day pop music. And it's just bringing together a lot of people through.
And Sharmeen actually also has, obviously introduced us to some great Pakistani artists. Gokul Karina in episode 1. That's thanks
My
to
dad
Sharmeen.
used to sing that song to me when I was a kid. I was like, why is it so familiar? Yeah.
Classic. music.
I think the music scene in Pakistan is so vivacious, and that I would flood Sana's WhatsApps with like 10 tracks, and I'd be like, listen to this, listen to this, listen to this. And I think so much of that is in the series, and it really does make you smile.
Yeah.
So you also mentioned Bollywood, so I want to go to this question from Rohan Patel from Comic Book Movie, who has a question. Episode 2 confirms Shah Rukh Khan, the actor, exists in the MCU. Have you ever considered actually bringing him into the MCU?
Oh, boy.
What would it take? So he's directing that to Kevin, but I'll give that to anyone who wants to answer.
Can we afford him?
Well, if he wants to, we're gonna shoot again, reshoot.
Let's reshoot and do some scenes with Shah Rukh Khan.
Okay. I'll leave that one there, and this is a shout out to Shah Rukh Khan.
Shah Rukh, call us.
Right.
Let's hang out. Yeah.
I volunteer to direct that. I volunteer.
It'll be better than DDLJ. Okay, so this one is from the Rakyat Post of Adeline Leong. In Malaysia has a question. There are many up-and-coming young superheroes, but what makes Miss Marvel special? What is the it factor that makes her stand out among the rest of the other young superheroes? And, I'll say we've already heard the name Tom Holland here. We've heard, we know there are other young high schooler age people in the MCU, but what is it that makes Kamala stick out?
Iman.
I think Miss Marvel, always understood fan culture on such a cellular level, and it just really elevated the storytelling in a really unique way. She's a 16-year-old kid with superpowers. Fine, we've seen that before. But she's also a fan of every other hero within the MCU canon, and that fascination and excitement is so shared with real-life Marvel fans. So that's why we relate to her. She reacts how we would when she gets powers, and so yeah, I love that part of her, and that's why I fell in love with her. And culture and religion were never the main thing of her personality. It was just some part of her life, how it was for me. It's like, this is the time I wake up, this is the time I go to school, this is the time I pray, this is the time I eat. Like, it's just a normal thing, and we didn't want to make the show about a Pakistani Muslim. It was about this Avengers loving fanfic writing dork who just so happens to be a Pakistani Muslim. And yeah, I think we balance it quite well. Thank you.
Snaps all around. So this one is from Caitlin Chappell from Comic Book Resources. The series has a distinct visual style to complement Miss Marvel's perspective. What was it like determining this visual language, and how does it help the story? Who can take that on?
Well, I guess it's about the animation, maybe. Well, for us, we always wanted to find a way to translate her imagination in a fantasy world in a cool way, and that's where we came up with the idea of injecting that animation aspect to it. And but we were a bit afraid that Kevin and the rest of Marvel would say no, because it's different from the other shows in the MCU. So we made a whole presentation, a whole dossier where we, with YouTube videos and all that, explaining why it was important to have those sequences. And surprisingly, he said yes. He said don't go overboard, don't do it every 5 seconds, but if it's true to the story and the character, let's go for it. And that's how we had that style that is very also inspired by Into the Spider-Verse. So thank you, Kevin, for allowing us to do that.
Okay, so this one is from Delia Harrington from Den of Greek. Kamala's costume is gorgeous, age-appropriate, and culturally specific. Can you talk about some of the details that make it special, especially any that might have been added for the show?
Let's take it together.
We'll tag team. Okay. Our wonderful costume designer Arjun Basan had incorporated so many, beautiful cultural prints into the fabric, and then we have the dupatta. That's kind of the scarf.
Wow, that was so eloquent.
She did so well.
Snaps?
Yeah.
Oh. Snaps?
It's your turn.
Okay, got it. Yes, the dupatta, which is the scarf. What was really fun about, I think, this was adapting the comic book design into something that felt like a super suit, that felt very Marvel, but still authentic to, I think, what the comic did and to her heritage, and also updating overall like the bolt design a little bit, and even just if you look at the detailing, there's a lot of cool textures in it that Arjun incorporated that feel very South Asian in a very subtle way, and yet have that texture and weaving thing that superhero suits have. So it's kind of wild. Arjun, I think it's the first costume we've actually done really in-house. Like Arjun's team did it. And he was like, what am I doing? He's like, I don't really do this.
One of the first dresses in the MCU.
Yeah.
That comes with its own problems.
Yeah.
It's like we were trying to figure out how to make it not ride up anytime I move. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Lots of fittings.
Yeah. It felt good. But seeing Iman wear that for the first time was such an awesome...
Do you remember that day? It's wiped.
Yes.
I was so numb.
It was a screen test. It was the first time you did the camera test. Sorry, it was the camera test.
We did the first fitting in my trailer.
Oh, that. Okay,
like the lightning bolt was even made out of a piece of paper. We were cutting it while it was on my body, stitching it while it was on me. It was just like, and so many people were in my trailer. Everyone wanted to see what was happening.
Did I cry that day?
Probably.
I've cried many days.
And you didn't let any of us.
There was a queue of us
outside
waiting.
Oh yeah. I was like,
we were like asking, like,
you're like
actually,
nobody is gonna see it.
And then I like walked to set and I have my like Sith Lord cape and no one could see what's underneath. Yeah.
Okay, so this one is for you, Yasmeen. This is a question all the way from Italy. Marco Massimiani from madmass.it says, can you talk about the importance of your role as Nakia, as proud feminist who fights for women's rights, and the meaning of the hijab usage and enhancement? What was that like for you?
I mean, like I said earlier, I feel like the main overlying tone for me in every day was just like, I'm so grateful and so honored to be here and to be playing such a strong and empowered character who, like, I truly wish I had to look up to on screen while I was growing up. And I found a lot of comfort in her in the comics before I knew about the show, and I was one of the people that had never walked into a comic book store before to go buy the Miss Marvel comic and read them. And I think there's a really beautiful scene in episode 2 that really just describes that feeling for Nakia, in that she says, when I put this on, I feel like me. And that is such a beautiful line and moment of identity of like, this is not something to be ashamed of. This is not something that you should hide away from. Like, this is what made her feel like confident in who she was. And that really truly has not been said about this culture before, and wearing a hijab before on screen. And I'm so honored to be the person to convey that.
And I should say, actually, yes, you can give her snaps for that too, for sure. But I have to say, Yasmeen and Meera, I mean, obviously we know about this, but really helped, like, really craft and make that scene her own, because she brought a lot of her identity and her experiences, and I think that's why it worked so lovely. We wanted to make sure that Yasmeen as Yasmeen was Nakia at the same time, and I know it was very, very meaningful. That entire sequence. So great work on more ways than one. Yes.
Thank you. Yeah, Sana was so collaborative. She sat down, and Jenna as well called me, and we sat down for like an hour to like work out all the kinks of that scene and make sure that it felt completely authentic. And it was really fun, honestly.
I just want to give props to as someone who wears hijab, that it also looked really intentional. It wasn't just thrown on. So whoever the designer was of both Truvina Springer's character, Taisha, and your character, your turbans, you looked great. It was really flawless.
We had a consultant on set. That was one of the first things we knew was incredibly important, was to make sure each of the hijabs looked different and that we had the right person actually wrapping them.
Amazing. Things that you wouldn't think about without the representation. Okay, so this is a question from the directors from Argentina. What we've seen so far is very lighthearted and fun. Anna Mason from PopCon says, what can you tell us about the deeper themes of the show and how they will unfold?
Well, their episodes are going to be a little bit darker and stakes are going to get higher. So let's discuss, ladies.
No spoilers, guys.
I think that in searching her identity, Kamala Khan is going to go on this journey to reconnect with her family, to understand why it's so important for her to tell her own story and to craft that story and to feel that she could be that superhero she always wanted to be, except that it would be her being the superhero as opposed to emulating someone else. And on that journey of discovery, we as an audience are going to go on what I can safely say is going to be the thrill of our lives.
Yes, there you go. That's all you can say.
Yeah. Done.
Anyone want to add anything to that, or is that's tease enough?
We literally
doing a
cannot
great
say
job so
anything.
far.
Okay, but good question there. Good question. Okay, so this one is for you, Kevin. This is Andy Gladman from Heroic Hollywood. Moon Knight was a darker series with a few MCU connections and a sinister villain introduced immediately. Ms. Marvel is much lighter, so this is in the same vein as the last question, thrives on MCU connections, and has no sign of a real supervillain in the first 2 episodes. So, of course, it's still early. Was it a conscious decision to differentiate the 2 subsequent series so much? And I guess he's asking that because of the timing that they both were released.
I think that's all sort of what I was talking about before. That's always the intention, is that the Marvel Studios logo doesn't promise a particular group of characters and a particular exact tone. It promises a spirit and a style and a vibe and an emotion, I hope. And it's perfect timing to go from Moon Knight to Miss Marvel, specifically because they're so unique and so different, with Multiverse of Madness and Love and Thunder on either end of that. And that is what makes Marvel in publishing and now in the MCU, I think, so unique, is being able to see all of those different tones and styles and characters. So I like very much that that people say, look, oh, they're all different, because that's how we always feel about them and always want them to feel.
So we have time for just 2 more questions, and thank you all in the virtual panel so much for sending them in. Some really great ones here. I will give this one to Iman. Iman, this is from Caitlin Booth from Bleeding Cool, who says, in the show, Kamala idolizes Captain Marvel and then gets powers just like her. Whose powers would you get if you could become your superhero ideal?
Okay, but different. Professor X, I want telepathy. Get inside a few people's minds. Yeah.
Okay, that is the one. Last question here. We might have time for 2, depending on how quick the answer is, but I'm going to give this one also to you, Iman, because this person wrote it in a while ago, so I want to give it to Eric Voss from the New Roxy. Yeah. I hear you're a fan. Is Kamala subscribed on YouTube to any real life Marvel YouTube channels? And there's a little note. You have our permission to make us MCU canon.
I watched their last video and they totally mentioned that. Yeah. I don't know if New Rockstars is canon in the MCU. I would love them to be. I think a version of them is a variant, if you will. Yeah. Hi, Eric. I love you. That's it. Thank you.
She means it. She literally just sent me a video of the mention yesterday, 2 days ago.
Yeah, like I have billboards with my face on it, but like him saying my name correctly and like breaking down our trailers was bigger than any billboard ever. Like
So true.
Thank you for that.
Okay, so final question from you guys. Now that this is coming out there, what do you want people to take away from it?
Well, well, it's just people that they can see the show, fall in love with Kamala Khan, with her friends and her families, because yes, she has superpowers, but the real powers are the love and the care from the friends and the family. So this magnificent cast here that brought these characters to life, that's the real main reason to watch the show. And I hope it's gonna be their family the same way that we all became a family. That's what I would say about that.
I love it. Perfect way to.
I actually want to add one thing. Sorry, not to.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Iman. I've been. I think what's really incredible about this show is like this idea of, you know, we've been talking a lot about identity, and sort of there's so much celebration happening in the course of these episodes, and every single episode there's just so much love and connectivity. And I feel like this show is really about sort of, you know, a reclamation of your identity, about going back to whatever households watch this show and go back to your own households, your own community, and kind of relish in it and celebrate your community and the fact that we can be proud in whatever skin color, background, sexual identity that we might have, and embrace it. I think we want this show to feel so joyous, because I mean, I think this is obviously such a joyous team here, but we want the show and the people to feel joyous afterwards and to celebrate in the fact of who they are and who their communities are, and just kind of spread that love outwards. So I hope.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I definitely felt the joy. You guys are a pleasure to be with. Thank you so much for sharing your time and your wisdom. I really appreciate it. I think the virtual audience appreciated it as well. Thank you so much for those of you who are at home or at work for joining us today. Reminder, you can watch the short about Ms. Marvel on Disney Plus right now. I watched it last night. It's really good. It's a good teaser. And then mark your calendars, because Ms. Marvel premieres on June 8th. So stay tuned. Thank you so much.